impossible. Human beings cannot tell 0.2 seconds, but I like it because I'm high involvement. Low involvement, things like bottled water, things like napkins, unless it's your wedding, then it's high involvement. And again, that's the sort of thing where if a product is very low involvement, we don't want to spend too much time on the branding. We don't want to spend too much time on building up the image because it's a waste of time. No one's going to care. If I spend $100 million on advertising for this bottle and there's another bottle, they didn't spend anything, I'm just going to grab whatever one. It doesn't matter to me. And if they're different prices, I'm never going to pay. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. At a restaurant, this is apparently 12 reals, but everywhere else it's 1 real. But again, it's at a restaurant where it does, I assume, matter. Well, I have no choice but to buy it anyway, so there you go. Okay, what is enduring level of involvement? What do you think that is? Yeah, so something like a house, a car, something you have for a long time. I'm not sure, would you say a dress is long term?
A dress, no. Because the fashion will continuously change.
Yeah, that's right. You're not going to wear a dress that you bought 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And a wedding dress, you only wear it once, hopefully, but it's still very high involvement, isn't it? You want it to be as perfect as possible. What is situation? Situational level of involvement?
Maybe it depends on the season, on the
or where you are.
Or the environment.
Yeah, so cars, for example. When I'm in Canada with all of my friends, the people I grew up with, I'm not going to drive a cheap little Kia because I'd be embarrassed. They'd say, you're a doctor, you're a professor, why are you driving a Kia? But here, I'm an expat. Expats don't drive expensive cars, so I don't care. I don't have anyone to impress, right? I have students who drive cars that cost as much as my house in Canada, and I pull up in I actually have a Skoda, the smallest Skoda, and I pull up beside, my Porsche GT3. Hi, sir, how you doing? Hi, how are you doing? But that's the idea. I'm an expat, so I don't care. I don't live here. These people are not my friends and that sort of thing. And that's something else. If we can modify the situation, we can get people to change their buying behavior. So for example, when my wife goes shopping, if I go with her, the situation changes. Because right away, I want my wife to have more expensive things than she wants. My wife is Canadian, but she's also Dutch. Do you know the story about Dutch people? They're very, very cheap. Even cheaper than Canadians. So my wife will buy the cheap, if she buys sandals, she'll go, $2, that's too much. I'm like, honey, I think we can afford $2, right? So if I go with her, I will spend more money. If you go shopping with your girlfriends, your same age, you will always spend more money than if you go by yourself. Why?
You have the restaurant, yeah.
That's exactly right. So I think actually a video I'm going to show later actually says that. A group of women are like money bags. They'll spend money to impress each other. Men do that too, but we don't do it with clothes. We do it with like cars and collectibles and stuff like that. Okay, so moving right along. A consumer's level of involvement is a major determinant of the type of problem-solving processes employed. So when I'm thirsty, I want a drink. I don't think too much about it. Usually water's good enough, sometimes certain types of juices, but depending on the situation, maybe I'll have a fresh squeezed juice, or maybe I'll have an iced tea, or maybe I'll have one of those banana cocktail things. So some of the problem-solving behaviors is what we have listed here. So number one is routinized response behavior. What does that mean?
We are used to drink this kind of water, for example.
Yeah, the things we do every time. So this is what they sell at the school, so I drink this all the time. So if I go to the store and I see this, I buy this just because I recognize it. Because I don't have to look at it and say, is it carbonated? Is it, I know what it is, I know I like it, I buy it. That's my routine. I just buy it without thinking. Then we have limited problem solving. What do you think that means?
When we know the product and we know it's good, it will not cause any problem or defection or damage.
Yeah. But it also means that we do a little bit of thinking as well. So again, with something like water, if I'm thirsty, I know this is enough for me. But if everybody in my family wants a drink, if we're all in the car, I have to think, is 1 enough? No. Is 2? No. 3? No. Probably I have to get 5. Because I know if I buy 1 for my oldest daughter and tell her to share with my youngest daughter, I want my own, and so I don't want that problem. But it's not a lot of thinking, it's just a little bit of thinking, okay? Then we have what we call extended problem solving. What do you think that means?
Well, think deep.
Yeah, you have to do a lot of thinking. So if I'm building a tower in Qatar, I'm not very familiar with what kind of glass I need. I need to know how much will the glass expand and contract, how much light energy will it let into the room, so increasing the temperature, how much, if children are in the apartment and they're throwing things at the window, how much impact can it take, how much air pressure can it take. I have to really think about those things, because if I don't, maybe somebody's child runs against the glass and falls through, and I can't have that. So I really need to think about it. Even more so, no matter what I think, I want to think even more. And that might be the same thing with something like a car. So, if I want a Porsche 911, if I buy one of those in Canada, I know it's going to cost me more for insurance because it's Canada. Gas is going to cost me a fortune. And because Canadians don't show off cars so much, my friends, some of them will make fun of me because they'll say, your car's too expensive, blah, blah. I'll buy used. It'll be like 2006, right? But people will still look at it and go, ooh, who do you think you are? That kind of stuff. So you really have to think about that stuff. And then, of course, we have what we call impulse buying, which we all probably even did today. What is impulse buying?
It's not a need. It's creating. It's not a need like water or. So when we create the need, and the marketing will push us to buy this thing.
Yeah. Sorry.
Attending the call.
Yeah. Basically, you're just buying something without thinking about it for a silly reason. Oftentimes because if you think about it, you won't buy it. So, I'm driving down the street, there's McDonald's, Big Mac, and I just buy it and eat it. Because I know if I think about it, I don't want to eat this. I know it's bad for me, blah, blah, blah. Other impulse buying, usually it's going to be jewelry, things, superfluous things that are extras, things that aren't really needs, they're wants, although we like to convince ourselves that they're needs. Okay? So, think about one of your products. What is the level of involvement and the problem-solving process? So I can only show one screen at a time. So if you look in your book, look at the level of involvement and look at the problem-solving process and try to think about classifying your product in that area. So I'll just give you a minute to do that, and I'm going to get rid of my dishes.
Does anyone mind if it's heard of the temperature?
It's really cold.
Is it too cold? Okay, well, there you go, no problem. That should be okay. And in terms of the type of
Solving process.
yeah,
I think it would be like impulse buying. It's just like
okay.
they don't need it, they don't, but it's a brand and they want to have it.
Okay, good. Anybody else?
For sustainability, for the client, it would be enduring. The level of involvement would be enduring because it's ongoing and long term, and obviously, like their return on investment on it would take years to manifest. And then the type of problem-solving process employed would be extended because they would have to do research, like in-depth research on what their needs are and what the alternatives are.
Excellent. One more.
For me, it's the same, in fact, because we must market, and it's high because we create the need, and it's impulse because we must, in fact, advertise for our products to motivate people buying these products.
Okay, good. So when we're looking at such issues here, there's reasons why we do this. So again, it's not just a list that we want to put in our pocket and think about. So when we're looking at levels of involvement, when it's something that is high level of involvement or enduring, we need to be able to answer a lot of questions. So for me, when I was doing real estate, obviously it's high involvement because you're going to live there for at least a year. Oftentimes somebody would bring their parents as well. So I have the young person who's going to live there, the parents as well want to know that their children are in a safe place, a place that's high quality. There's no, rats or cockroaches or anything like that. But it's also enduring because it's going to take a while. And part of the enduring that I would take advantage of, or not take advantage of, but explain to them is that I'm there every month to do an inspection. So I didn't just wait for them to call and say there's something wrong. I would show up once a month and check to make sure that there is nothing wrong. Okay? And so that's one of those situations where you think, if I'm going to live here for a year, how many times will the furnace break down? How many times will the plumbing break down? How many things will go wrong in this year? But as part of my value, I make the enduring part a little bit easier by coming in and looking for problems before they become problems. So a tiny little leak, I fix it before it ruins somebody's carpet or ruins somebody's bed, that sort of thing. So the other one for me is we're talking about extended problem solving. So when people think about renting a property, how close is it? How much does it cost? What is the temperature like? Is it close to the kitchen because I don't want to have too much noise? Is it big enough that I can put all of my furniture in it? There's a lot of thinking involved in there. And so again, I would have issues that I could help them with. So little things like, yes, the last tenant had a king-size bed and a desk and a dresser. So your king-size bed and dresser and desk should fit without any problem. Little things like that. Or when people worry about how much is the utilities, I can say to them, here's the utilities from last year. As you can see, they're very low in September and October and November, but they go very high in December. And they would always say the same thing, oh my God, look how much it is in December. So right away I'd flip over the page and go, yes, but if you average it out over 12 months, here's the average. That's not so bad, right? That's what marketing is about. This is why we think about these things. So even with, again, if we're trying to be sustainable, you mentioned yourself that some solar paneling is very expensive upfront cost, but you can save long term. So that's obviously something that's going to be involve extended. It's also going to be something that's enduring. So how can we adapt to that? We can offer credit. So we say to them, look, you don't have to drop $100,000 in cash. We'll give you credit. So instead, you're making monthly payments just like your electrical bill. Let's compare your monthly payments to the electrical bill. Oh, look at that, they're cheaper. So in actual fact, using solar panels is going to be cheaper for you. That's why we want to know that that's how they're looking at it. If something is impulse buying, it's more of a location issue, right? That's why all the candy is right by the checkout. So while you're standing there, you look over and you see the Mars bar and you grab it. So that's the sort of planning if it's something with an impulse, because if you give people too much time to think about it. Let me ask you this, how many of you have ever bought something at the grocery store, put it in your cart, but then by the time you got to pay, you looked and went, oh, I better not get that. There you go. That's why you don't put the impulse stuff far away, because it gives you too much time to think about it. I had a chocolate cheesecake, and I'm looking at it, and I'm going, I'm going to eat that whole thing tonight. I better put it back. But if it was right at the checkout, I'd have got it, and by the time I paid for it, well, I already paid for it. I might as well eat it in the car on the way home with my bare hands. Okay, so that's, again, why we have these tools. Not just to have steps to go through, but so that we actually understand how our customer's position dictates how we do our marketing plan. Okay, so here we have one of the most common things in consumer behavior is the consumer buying decision process, the 5-stage of purchase decision making. So the first one is problem recognition. I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, I need transportation, my hair's too frizzy, my feet hurt, stuff like that. The next one, information search. I ask my friends, what's a good restaurant? I go on qatarliving.com, what's a good restaurant? I drive down the street and see an advertisement for the Gordon Ramsay restaurant at some hotel. Okay? Next, evaluate the alternatives. So when we're thinking about alternatives, as customers, this is usually where we think about the marketing mix. So price, product, place, and promotion. If I have 2 hours for lunch, I know I can't make it to Rick's Country Kitchen because it'll take me an hour just to get there and an hour to get back, so I'll have to eat too quickly. That's no good. If I want to go to the mall, if I go to Landmark, it's nice and close, it's very easy, but if I'm going by myself, the problem is my students all go to Landmark at lunch. I don't want to be eating in a restaurant by myself and have my students walk by thinking I don't have any friends, right? So I'll go to, say, City Center. If I go to City Center, there's that nice French restaurant on the top thing, something Gardens. They have spinach crepes, delicious, very inexpensive, and the service is good. So there you go. Good location, good price, good service, good product, right? So all of the things I look for given my specific situation. Now, if I only have an hour and I need something really quick, drive-through, you know, and I hate that. That's why I keep soup in my office, because I don't want to do the drive-through. Then, of course, the actual purchase. You go and you actually buy it. And then even when you're buying it, there's all the other things you got to think about. So, you know, do I want the large Coke? Do I want to upsize? Do I want to get dessert? Then, of course, post-purchase evaluation. Was it worth it? The price I pay, what I expected? Is the place, was it what I expected? I've gone to restaurants where the restaurant itself was beautiful, and then you go into the bathroom and it's total chaos in there. You know, it's like they're cleaning goats or something. I don't know what's going on in bathrooms, but it's very bad. Other things, you hear really good things about a restaurant, then you go, you eat the food, it's no good. It's just terrible. And it doesn't have to be terrible in that it's prepared badly. Maybe it just has spices that you don't like. So for example, Indian food. If you eat Indian food in Canada, it's not real Indian food. It's bland. Okay? But for Canadians, it's spicy. But then you come to Qatar or go to Britain and you eat Indian food. It's, you know, if I go to an Indian restaurant here, I can't eat that food. I'm not accustomed to it. So I think of it as bad, even though it's probably prepared the way it should be. So let's think about going through the steps. What steps will your customer go through? And they're pretty much similar for businesses as well. So just jot down a couple quick notes about what your customer is doing as they go through these stages. Okay? So I'll give you about 5, maybe 10 minutes to work on that. And I'll only have 1 or 2 of you present.
To have the good choice, or
Well, what problems are your, would you like to answer, or?
I will do it.
Okay. Sorry, he saved you. There you go. He really wanted to answer too. Did you see
No,
that?
I don't want
I'd like this one.
to. I'm thinking actually. Maybe the issues they had with the previous company.
Okay, so what is the specific problem then that they might have had with their previous company?
Production quality.
Okay, so that would be one.
reason can
Production issues, the production is not as per the requirements. The understanding between the customer and the company, the way they want it to be, the finishing, so many things are there.
maybe the late delivery,
Delays in the delivery.
Okay. So these are all problems that they would recognize, but what we want to think of first, before any of that,
At this point, they decided to go with somebody else, maybe us.
okay, but before we even think of any of that, what we want to think of is what problem is your customer trying to solve by buying your product? So for glass, the problem is if they build a building, it needs to be closed, right? So they need to have glass on the building so people can see out of it and so they can be protected from the heat.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing we want to think of. For a dress, they need to cover themselves.
Maybe more.
Yeah, and then we expand on that. So they want to cover themselves, or they need to look good for a wedding,
Events,
or...
occasions.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we want to think about, because we want to get in the mind of our customers to think, what is a problem for them? Because for some people, it's no problem, right? So for me, if I'm going to a wedding this summer, I'm not going to buy a new suit to go to a wedding, but my wife, of course, will buy a new dress to go to a wedding. So selling to men and women just for that problem recognition is different. But if I go to a job interview, I will buy a new suit for that. So that's the idea. The video I was going to show you for diamonds, one of their marketing situation was, for problem recognition, people were only buying diamonds for engagement rings. So for most people, back then, was only once in their lifetime. So what they said was, if their problem is I need a diamond for my engagement ring and then I'm done, let's change it around. Let's convince people that diamonds are for many different events. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. So we don't just give it with our ring, we make it an anniversary present. We make it a birthday present. We make it, all these other things. Then the problem is, I need an anniversary present, diamonds. The problem is, my daughter graduated from high school, diamonds. That's the key. That's why we want to know specifically what kind of problems that they're going to have so that we can change our marketing around to solve that problem again and again. Okay? So next one, information search.
Information, maybe not for me, maybe the end consumer, .com, they go there, they search for the different companies and then they contact them.
Yeah.
Those are the paid ads. They can find the email, fax, whatsoever over there. So they can easily contact them.
Yeah.
For us, most of the customers, they know about each and every glass processing company here. There are plenty, 7 or 8, but they know us already.
Okay. Now, if let me ask you guys this. Let's say you were building a house and you wanted to find a company to put the windows in your house. Who is the best person to ask about the quality of those windows?
The one who tried it.
Internet?
Yeah.
The one who tried it? Yeah? Okay, what else?
Consultants.
Consultants? Who else?
Search on the internet and see the results of the consumers and what is the best. Like, if you go into any site, they tell you how many companies
Yeah? Let me give you an example. You're right, but here's the problem with that. That's a marketing tactic as well. There's a hamburger stand in my home city of London. It's called it's called Relish Hamburgers. And when you go to the website, there's a website called Yelp where they review restaurants. 1 out of 5, this place sucks. 1 out of 5, don't ever go here. 1 out of 5, the service sucks. 5 out of 5, this is the best hamburger I've ever eaten in my life. It's worth more. Who is it?
They pay for them to write it themselves.
That's exactly right. Because anybody can go on the internet and say, Robert Madronic is the most handsome 20-year-old man I've ever seen. It's the internet. People can lie. That's the problem. It's not to say it's not valuable, because if you see 100 negative reviews and 50 good reviews, you know it's bad. But my experience in construction, I always ask the employees of the company. If I'm going to hire a plumber, I find an employee who's worked there for a while and I say, be honest with me, should I hire your company? And they'll tell me.
Not always say the
They
truth.
might also.
No, that's just, they can lie too, but what happens is I ask them first, then I go to the internet, then I go to customers. You have to ask many different sources.
Yeah.
But the employees are always a good one, because at the very least, you can get some information from them. And it's easy to find an employee who lies because it's not their job to lie. Marketing people, it's our job to lie. So if you find an employee and they lie to you, you can usually tell if they're lying. It's like my kids. My kids are still so young, they're not good at lying yet, so I always catch them. My wife, she can lie to me and I'll never know. She's good at it, right? So that's the idea with information search. The other thing, of course, other customers, your good friends. I mean, hopefully your good friends will tell you the truth as well. Then we have evaluation of alternatives. Now, how we evaluate is based on the information we have. So we have to get good information. I can't tell you how good McDonald's is unless I get good information. If I ask, one person and they say McDonald's is awesome, that doesn't mean it's awesome. It means that one person says it's awesome. So for your customers, how do they evaluate the alternatives between you?
Machinery we have,
Yeah?
staff,
Yeah?
delivery trucks.
Yeah? Trucks?
Yeah.
What else? What for the rest of you?
The customer, the after sales, basically.
Yeah?
Yeah, because sometimes what happens when we have the issues, which is very normal, then most of the companies, they do not take the ownership of the problem,
No?
and they leave the customer in between. So most of them, we started to make a good market here, just because because since we are the manufacturer, we tell them it's 10 years warranty. One day, 1 glass, 100 villas, whatsoever, we will be there to support you.
Okay.
So it attracts them.
Well, there you go. That's the value you were looking for.
Yeah.
Because I've had that problem.
It is, we are using as a value proposition, basically.
Yeah. There's too many businesses out there that don't own the problem. I'll come back and say this glass isn't working. Oh, well, you probably did something to it. Yeah, I bought it from you. That's the problem.
It has to be a manufacturing defect.
Yeah.
It has to be a manufacturing defect. Something maybe because of the environment, it's very hot here. it started to, the coating started to melt whatsoever,
Yeah.
and the reflection or the value of the energy, whatsoever, started to defect.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll come and replace it, no problem.
Yeah.
Same goes for the insulated glasses. It had a hole, and water going inside whatsoever. We'll come and replace it.
Yeah. That's really, really important, and that's one of the
We
reasons.
a warranty letter for that
Yeah. Excellent.
to make it more documented.
It's very important, again, when you understand your customers, understand how they do the evaluation. In City Center, there's a clothing store, and one day I was going to go in, I was going to buy a new suit. As I'm walking, there's literally, at the doorway, as I'm about to walk in, there's one guy sitting there in a chair smoking, and the other friend is there standing there talking to him smoking. These are both the employees. Smoking in a clothing store. Do you know why that's bad?
It's the smell on the clothes.
Yeah, it smells. Number two, you're not supposed to smoke in the mall, so if you don't follow the mall's rules, can I trust you? No, of course not. Then, as I walk in, they don't even get up to ask me what I need. They watch me walk by. The guy finishes his cigarette before he talks to me. Am I going to get a good suit out of these guys? No. Those are the sort of things that you really need to understand. Something like the color of your building will influence them. What your parking lot looks like. I went to this one restaurant. As I'm walking into the restaurant, there's a guy standing outside dressed like a cook, smoking. So what am I thinking? This guy's going to have a cigarette with all this stuff in his mouth, then he's going to go cook my food. Is he going to wash his hands? By the looks of it, he hasn't washed in a long time. So do you think I went in there? And then, of course, the bathroom. I'm amazed how I will walk into a restaurant, right to the bathroom, and it's like you're in another country. It's bizarre. I'm not eating in a place like that. Now that, some of you would say, well, that's no big deal, but that's the key. If I'm your customer, you have to know those things. For other people, if you don't have a family section, they're not going. For my wife, if you're sitting right there and you have 3 children going nuts, we are not sitting anywhere near you because we've had our kids. We're done with that. When I go to the mall and I see children on bicycles, okay, that's not a mall I need to shop at. But, where I come from, you don't play in the mall. But, of course, where I come from, it's not 50 degrees either, so that's the issue. So, very important you understand what it is people evaluate. See, I'm in Canada, when I evaluate the quality of a glazier, the quality of the product, I don't have to evaluate that. They're all good. Because if they weren't good, they wouldn't survive in Canada because we're not, we don't have buildings going up on every corner. So I don't worry about that. What I worry about are things like the service. If you pull up in a truck that looks like it's going to fall apart, I know you don't take care of your equipment, which means you're probably not producing a very good product. So those are the issues that I think of. Then, of course, we have the purchase. How are your customers purchasing? I am amazed at how many businesses still do not accept credit cards or debit cards. Who carries cash anymore? Right? So I can't go to Rick's Country Kitchen unless I have to stop at the bank machine. But because it's 50 degrees and it stinks, I'm not standing in a bank machine. Even worse, there's always 5 people at the bank machine. So as soon as I see that, I'm not going there. And is that fair to them? No. It has nothing to do with them. But like I said, that's the environment that influences that. So the other things about purchasing. Am I going to purchase it now? Or are you going to give it to me now and I pay later? Or the one I hate the most, I pay now and you deliver later. You know what I think? I'm going to give you money now, and you promise me it'll be here in a week. It will not be there in a week. I have had, the only delivery I've ever had was from the home store that was on time. And that was once. I've ordered lots of stuff from the home store. Even them, they only did it once on time. Everything else that's ever been delivered to my house has been late.
Late.
Yeah. And I'm not giving you my money early so you can do your job late.
Yeah.
So now I don't order anything. Well, that's not true. I go to IKEA because I can take it with me. That's the situation for me. And Western expats were like that. It's not fair. I give you my money and then you deliver whenever you're good and ready. I don't do business that way. Mm-hmm. So again, that's you need to think about for your customer. What are they thinking? Next one, post-purchase evaluation. What do they want after they buy it? Longevity and quality, of course. But do they want you calling every day asking if everything's okay or trying to sell you something else? No, nobody wants that. I bought a Chrysler. Every month they were calling me. If you want to bring your car in and we'll put in a spoiler, we'll tint the windows. No, man, come on. I'm an old man. What other things do people think of? Evaluation post after you buy something, how do they evaluate the product?
Quality versus price.
Yeah, quality versus price, right? So I will say this, for a very expensive wallet, this actually is a real one. No loose threads. It's still nice and firm after almost 2 years. When I had a fake one of these, the thread started coming off within a week, right? So I'm not saying it's worth what my wife paid for it, but it's a damn good wallet, I'll give you that. So that's the situation. What else? What other things do we evaluate post-purchase?
If they have the exclusivity of the item, like in fashion.
Yeah, if you say you're the only one who sells it, and then I see it in 2 other stores, that's a problem for me, right? This is the thing about Louis Vuitton bags. How is it special now? I see 12-year-old girls carrying Louis Vuitton bags. That's not special anymore. It's like an iPhone and an iPad. I saw a kid, this kid was wearing a diaper, but he had an iPad. So don't tell me an iPad is special, right?
For instance, let's say, for the industries, when we make decision to buy a machinery maybe, we may go to a very high machinery just because of the post-purchase evolution.
Mhm.
And that comes with office sales, the service thing, the availability of the technician in the region, spare parts, so many factors.
You know what? That's a very good point. I forgot about that. I bought an Acer laptop when I first came to Qatar, and I had a problem with it. I went back to, I think it was Carrefour, and they said, well, we don't have a repair shop. You have to send it to Dubai for a $400 laptop. So I just threw it away and bought another laptop, but I didn't buy an Acer. And that was the situation. Now, of course, I'm sure they have a local one. But I bought a Samsung TV. It broke down. I called Samsung. They told me the address. I went in, and they said it'll be ready tomorrow. And I literally, this is what I did. Say, it'll be ready tomorrow. Say it.
It will be ready tomorrow.
Yeah, okay. And I walked out the door. I thought, there's no way I'm going to hear from these guys for a week. The next day, they called, your TV's ready. So everything in my house is Samsung. My phone is Samsung. Because that's awesome. Because I know that they're reliable. That's my post-purchase. I don't even care that it broke down in like a year. TVs are supposed to last a lot longer than that. It ended up being, it wasn't a problem with Samsung. It was one of the parts from, a secondary supplier. They replaced it for free in 1 day. Even in Canada, I can't get a TV fixed in 1 day. So that's it. That's where I go, and I tell everybody that story.
Fixed or replaced?
Well, replaced is fixed, as far as I'm concerned. It didn't cost me anything. So I'm happy with that. And it still works, and this is 7 years later. So that's the idea. So this is, again, one of those situations when you think about a relationship, rather than just getting your money first, if I come back and say this is a problem, don't say it's going to cost me 50 reals to fix this. Say, I will spend another 50 reals so this guy comes back and buys me 2 more TVs from me later. TVs that are more expensive than, the ones from China or whatever, because I'll take it. That's, my last Samsung phone was with a flip phone. It didn't even have a color screen. It didn't have internet. It had nothing. I had to text by pressing the three times to get a letter. And I was fine with that. But when I finally dropped it in the toilet and it wrecked, I said, I'm going to buy a smartphone. Didn't even think of iPhone. I thought Samsung, because I know that it's a good product. And that's, again, the relationship. When I go back to Canada, I have to buy a new house and fill it with furniture. Every piece of electronics will be Samsung. With, not every piece, but whatever I can do for Samsung. Okay. We're going to watch the video, but we'll just sort of talk about this fairly quickly. Some influences about when we're shopping. When we're shopping, there's a lot of things about us inside, as well as a lot of things outside that influence how we shop and what we buy. So I've already said many times, Canadians do this, Canadians don't do this. Some of the issues specific to when we buy something, the first one obviously is the circumstances of buying something. So the reason why things are so expensive at the airport, you don't have a lot of choice, right? If you're going to buy a bottle of water at the airport, it's not 1 real, it's a lot more than 1 real. And then you buy it, you have 2 sips, and then they take it away from you before you get on the plane. But that's the situation. The time, how much time you have, the time of day, the time of the year. So air conditioners, or let's talk about space heaters. Space heaters are more expensive in November and December because that's when they're the most in demand. When are they cheaper? Right about now, right? Or when spring happens. Then, of course, location. So again, I will pay more for a restaurant that's in a hotel because it's beautiful, it's nice, I don't have to worry about smell, there's a nice view, that sort of thing. But if I have to go, well, for example, I called a place, I forget what I was buying, but they said, oh, we're in the industrial area. Click. I am not going to the industrial area for any reason. As a matter of fact, one of the main reasons I rent a car rather than buy one is because I don't want to go to the industrial area for repairs. That's it. I just can't do it. So I spend extra. So these are the situations, again, you want to think about, the circumstances. So when people come to buy your dresses, why are they buying them? If it's for a wedding, there cannot be anything wrong with a woman's dress at their wedding. If they're buying it for a funeral, well, for Canadians anyway, we don't really care so much how we look at a funeral. If you're buying something just to give, I'm going over to your house, so I'm bringing a small gift, they're not going to spend a lot, they're not going to think about it, right? So now we're thinking about the other things. What sort of thought process and problem-solving process are they going through? And then, of course, location. Do we really need a McDonald's on every corner? I mean, have you ever said, I want McDonald's, but I don't want to drive for 2 minutes? I don't think so. But the other thing with location is right now, where I live, there's no Domino's close enough. So when I call Domino's, they won't deliver pizza. Domino's is the first place I call. I call them, sorry, we can't come and get your money. Why not? Well, you're on the wrong side of the street. Are you kidding me? You will drive that far, but you won't drive this much further for my money. I'm ordering, yeah. It's amazing. If you go to a small company that's owned by an entrepreneur, they'll never say that. They'll say, oh, we'll be there in a minute. No problem. Then we're going to turn down 100 reals worth of food for one couple of meters? No. So Domino's doesn't get my money anymore. So we want to think about those things. Okay, I'm going to show another video now. How are we doing? Actually, it's 8 o'clock. Do we want to have a break for prayer, or how's our time for prayer?
No, it's not a problem.
Okay, anybody else? Well, you know what? Let's just have another break just because I'm supposed to and I don't want to break any rules. So let's take about 15 minutes. So let's say about 10 after. There's coffee. I left some chocolate. There's donuts and so forth. Test. Okay. Saeed will be back. His name is Saeed. I actually checked. There you go. There's marketing relationship building there for you. I think it's Saeed. This is what it says. So what we're going to do now is we talked about some of the influences that affect us when we are doing our purchasing and will affect your customers. So again, there's a variety of different influences, and your key is to try to figure out which of those your customers are experiencing at the specific time and in general when we're talking about your type of product. So I'm going to show you another video here. This is a video I show my daytime students. It sort of gives a little bit of information. Unfortunately, it can't show everything because that would be a very long video. So it'll at least give us a little bit of a teaser, I guess, before we have some discussion. Oh, that's too dark. Okay. So again, if you can't quite hear it, if you want to move up, I'll leave that up to you. Okay, what happened now? Oops. All right, let's shake it off and move on. Okay, so the video I was going to show you highlighted a lot of what we've discussed already in terms of circumstances, predominantly in the retail industry, which really only affects, I think, a couple of you in terms of what you sell, but it sort of gives us a little bit of a hint as to the sort of thought process that people go through as they're buying. So we talked about how circumstances, time, and location can affect our customers. But there's some other influences, psychological influences, so the influences on the manner in which we think about things. Psychological influences are those that operate in part to determine people's general behavior. So our behavior, the research suggests that behavior comes from attitude to intention to behavior, thus influencing their behavior as consumers. So they're explained on the next slide, but there's basically 6 of them. Perception, motives, learning, attitudes, personality and self-concept, and lifestyles. Actually, we'll just go through each of those. So, what do we mean when we say perception? Do you know what perception is?
What really you expect from the product.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Perception is also how you view a certain type of product. So we always hear about what is beautiful in this country, what is beautiful in this country. So for example, in a lot of countries, blue eyes and blonde hair is beautiful, and so a lot of women will dye their hair blonde, and a lot of men will dye their hair blonde too to hide the gray. But in many countries, blonde hair and blue eyes is not beautiful. In other countries, a woman who is very tall is beautiful. In some countries, a woman who is short is beautiful. In terms of perception, cars. So for somebody like me, because I'm 42, if I were to buy a Camaro and just put the big rims on it and put the little transformer symbol on it, if I drove the type of car that my 20-year-old students drive,